This is the EVP Podcast. Yes, another episode of the EVP Podcast with your team, Energy, Visions, and the Paranormal. I'm DVO.
I'm Beaker.
And I'm Ghosty.
And it's the three of us, the three amigos.
What's up, y'all?
All right, well, last episode, great episode. We had a lot of interaction with us on our social medias about the episode. I hope you guys listened to it because we had some really great EVPs that we shared with you. And in fact, we have a listener submitted EVP who were they with us during the investigation as well then?
I don't know.
This was at a different time.
This was a different time that they were
same
there.
Same place,
okay.
though.
Okay, yeah, same place.
From
so, Beaker, you've got a listener submitted EVP.
Yes. So this is from John, and he was with his friend Travis. And he says at the start of the event, him and his friend Travis, they quickly separated from the group that they were in and went to investigate the hallway and some of the rooms. Now, they started, I guess his friend Travis just had the voice recorder, so this is his audio that we're going to be playing here. John walked down to room 666 with just his voice recorder and a K2 meter. He got to the entrance of the room and he started asking usual questions like,
What's your favorite ice cream?
What's your favorite steak and potatoes? Beef means eggs and potatoes. Anyways, so he started asking a bunch of questions. He got to the point where he said, "Can I come in the room?" And
so just real quick, so this room is a room where you can stand in the threshold of the door and say, "Pull me in" or "Push me out." Right? This is that room which Ghosty tried. Didn't work.
It didn't work for him. If any of you have seen the Ghost Adventures episode, this is the room where Zach supposedly got pushed up against the wall. So he said he waited about 10 seconds. He saw what looked like a flashing ball of light about the size of a pea fly over his voice recorder. And then he started telling his friend, who was about 30 feet, he started telling his friend Travis, about 30 feet down the hallway, what he had saw, and he wasn't sure if it was a bug or anything like that. And then this is when he gets the EVP, as he's telling Travis what he experienced. So we're going to play that here. And the whole clip is about 30 seconds long. We're just going to play like the last 3 seconds here.
Of the EVP.
So here we go.
This didn't go off at all, though.
Yeah, so you hear, it was Travis that was talking. You hear him just say just a little sentence, and then you hear like this wispy sound.
Yep.
Let's play it again.
Oh, you want?
This didn't go off at all, though.
Yeah, 2 syllables. Yeah, it's pretty.
It's I would
hear
say
3.
You hear 3?
I hear something and then 2 syllables.
Because it sounds like Travis ends, and then I hear 2. But let's play it again. Let's see if
One
we
more
can.
time.
And people that are listening or watching, I want you guys to tell us what you think it's saying.
Yeah, because we have no clue. Here we go. One more time.
This didn't go off at all, though.
That time I went too far, and you hear him say "f that," but that's okay because I swear all the time. But yeah, it's like 3 words.
Nice
Maybe 2
sideburns.
Nice sideburns.
Or my side burns.
I'm hyper.
Possible.
I'm hyper. I know. I hear hyper pretty in there.
Now
Hyper.
that we've put all these thoughts in your head, tell us what you think.
Yes. We can't figure it out. Well, this episode, I got this idea from what?
Well, just thanks for John submitting
Yes.
that EVP. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you so
bud.
much. So this episode, I got the idea sparked from another podcast. You guys might be surprised to hear that I listen to other paranormal podcasts, but I do.
I listen to Haunted Places.
Like you go up to the doors and like listen and see if they talk to you.
I get the glass, like in the movies.
Yeah,
and
the glass up to the door.
The glass to the door, and I'm like, is anybody in there?
They
I'm gonna start doing that on investigation.
Like, it's me, it's Casper.
Let's go back to a Silent 49 with just cups.
Yeah, we'll just investigate from the outside.
Go back to room 3.
Get the tallest beakers you have.
I'm the tallest beaker.
We got the
you
tallest
have.
beaker we have.
Sorry. Anyway.
So anyway, this podcast is named Sasquatch Chronicles. Guess what they talk about, guys?
Ghosts.
They talk about ghosts.
I don't know about that.
And Beaker's family.
My cousins.
The ginger side of it.
The ginger squatch.
And so anyway, I like this podcast. It's a fun podcast. I hear people's stories, but they do talk about other random stuff besides Sasquatch. And this was an episode where they didn't interview this individual, but they interviewed. Sorry, I just said they didn't, and I just said they did.
They interviewed him, but they didn't interview him. At the interview, they interviewed him in.
They took a speech and they played it on the podcast of a Mr. Richard Doty and his stories, because he worked in counterintelligence at Area 51 for 5 years during the 80s.
Disinformationist.
Yeah, so let's get into it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna tell you about who he is, and then we're gonna tell these two what I think are fascinating stories, and we're gonna tell you guys, and talk about it a little bit more. So, Peeker, please tell us, who is Mr. Doty?
Oh, he's a guy.
He is a guy.
Yep, problem solved. Figured it out.
A woman?
Richard Doty, or Rick Doty. He worked for the U.S. Air Force. And he was actually stationed at Area 51 from 1980 to 1985. While he was there, he worked in, like you said, research and development. He worked on advanced aircraft, flying technology, space-based lasers, ground-based lasers, energy weapon systems. His security clearance was S2. He was a little bit lower than Bob Lazar, who was S4.
Bob Lazar.
Do
you know Bob Lazar's story?
So as I was watching other stuff that was completely unrelated to what we're talking about, I came across this news clip on YouTube. He was another, I believe, a disinformationist as well. He came out and started telling his experiences with UFOs and aliens and stuff. And they hooked him up to lie detector tests. Mm-hmm. And the results came back basically inconclusive, or that he was telling the truth about his experiences.
Yeah, Bob Lazar has two great interviews. One is on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. The other one is Amazon Video?
No, it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It's incredible. That might be another topic, because his story is incredible.
Yeah, but he was doing the
engineering,
reverse engineering. So he was wondering how spaceships go up.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the other programs, or some of the programs that Rick Doty worked on, he was part of Project Cannon Sky, which was photographing space objects. He was also part of Project Radiant Bravo, which is S-17 and stealth tracking. Part of Project Might, which dealt with high-speed lasers and high energy and chemical lasers. This is all
freaking lasers.
Freaking lasers. He just wanted freaking sharks with freaking laser beams attached to his forehead. Wow. Project Auburn Blue. He examined captured space objects, and Project Medium Star, or MedStar. Sorry.
Medium Star.
Look. MED is the abbreviation for medium.
Always.
So clearly it's medium star, not med star. Good God. They examined captured extraterrestrials. ETs.
I'm going to make a call to your third grade teacher.
Extra large terrestrials. And medium stars.
Medium. It's look. That's how you abbreviate medium.
Who's your second grade teacher? I need to talk to them.
I've mentioned this in other podcasts. If you want shit read poorly, just give it to me, and that's what's gonna happen.
All right. Anyway, good old Ricky here. He shares some pretty interesting stories in this speech, and so yeah, he's basically just coming out like saying, "Hey, shit's real over in Area 51," and in fact, just those last two projects he was a part of that you mentioned. Project Auburn Blue and Project MedStar.
Medium Star.
I don't know if you guys caught this listening to it, but Baker said it's the examination of captured space objects and captured extraterrestrials. As in, yeah, we have
things
them.
that fall from the sky.
We've got them.
So they collected a lot of other stuff other than ET stuff. They collected like Russian satellites,
and Chinese, and.
Do you work on Project Blue Book at all?
No, he didn't.
Not him.
Okay.
No, he did not. So, I'm going to tell the first story. This story is about a family in 1982. It was a family of four traveling early in the morning from Ely, Nevada to Death Valley for a vacation. It was
Sounds
David.
like a great place to go.
I actually looked up Death Valley. I know a lot of people go there, but I've never been. So I was like, what's in Death Valley? I looked it up. It's purely just a really super hot desert in Nevada.
It's the hottest place on Earth.
So
it's in California.
It's a big. Is it in California? Oh, I didn't know that. Well, it's a big pass for me. I'll tell you that.
It's just past. So if you're going through Vegas and you go down through Prim into California, it's one of the first cities. I think it's before Barstow.
I know where Ely is, and doesn't look fun. They're known for their trains.
But as far as I
Ghost
know,
towns.
Death
Yeah.
Valley is like the hottest place in the world.
So the family consists of David, who's the father, Connie, the mother, Katie, I think that's what he said. I think he said Katie. She's a 9-year-old girl, and Keely, a 5-year-old boy. So as they're driving, again, this was like early in the morning. I'm going to guess maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 in the morning maybe. They notice an object traveling towards them. And then David, the father, he was already stating, this has got to be a spaceship. Connie, the mother, says, well, this is traveling above the ground. So it's not like on the road with us. This is above the ground. Well, a tire blew out. Connie put her hand on the roof of the car and said it felt spongy. David said a gray mist was already coming into the vehicle. That kind of sounds weird. A gray mist was entering the vehicle. The family's voice started changing pitch, and they started talking slower. There was a humming sound from outside that was started getting louder. And David said he kind of blacked out for a few seconds while they were still moving, while the car was still moving. Everyone started getting hysterical, so David pulled over the car. Once they pulled over, they ran into some shrubs.
Well,
just
they said
off
the
roadway.
car seemed to levitate,
They,
and then so he just completely shut it off.
yeah,
it seemed like they were still
felt
moving.
like it did.
I think if the tire
was-
blew out, he'd already be pulled over.
Yeah. Because the funny enough is that is the very first point that the tire blew out, and then all these other things started happening.
It was important.
So they ran into some nearby shrubs, and they saw a saucer-shaped object land near their car, and 3 creatures exited the saucer. The 3 creatures floated to them while they're in the bush. So it didn't like walk to them; they floated to them. One of the creatures pointed to the oldest daughter, to the boy Keely, and then he floated to the saucer. Then another creature pointed to Katie. She then floated to the saucer. David and Connie were just paralyzed. They couldn't move. They could see what was happening. They could hear what was happening, but they could not move. Then the creatures floated back to the saucer and flew off. David and Connie can now move, and they ran to their car, and they just started driving to try to seek help. So they drove about 20 miles to a flight test range, and they spoke with the deputy and some of the agents. The deputy, this was like the local deputy, he didn't believe him. And he just, I mean, I guess the story, or I guess this statement is not a very nice statement, but a true statement, where he said, if what you're telling us is true, there's nothing we can do. If they floated off in a spaceship, there's nothing we can do, which is true. There's nothing they could do if that was the fact. So David and Connie then drove to a hotel. The next morning, security guards in a remote area found the 2 kids on a dirt road. The kids were about 70 miles away from the base. This is where they drove off to once they became unparalyzed. They did identify the kids as Katie and Keely. They were slightly dehydrated, but overall in really good condition. Richard Doty, the storyteller here, him and his partner David then drove up to Tonopah from Area 51 where they worked to interview the kids. This was about an hour or about a 2.5 hour drive from Area 51 to Tonopah. Tonopah. The kids said that 2 creatures put them in chairs and strapped them in. The kids said that the creatures, they spoke, but it sounded like it sounded very robotic, and it was in bad English. The creatures didn't harm them, but did examine them thoroughly, especially the oldest, Katie. The creatures did give them some pills that once they put in their mouth, it melted right away, and it did cause them to feel a little dizzy. One tall creature put a ribbon on their head, which made them feel calm right away. The creatures also said they've known the kids for quite a long time, and at some point, the oldest, Katie, said that they were pointing like a map out, kind of saying this is where you are and this is where we're from. And she had tried duplicating that map, and they just to the authorities when they were questioning her, and she it just didn't make a lot of sense to
Well,
them.
this is a 9-year-old girl. She just drew
Yeah.
2 dots on the
Yeah,
blank
said-
papers and this and this.
Yeah, exactly. The kids then fell asleep, and when they woke up, they were on the dirt road. So Richard contacted Tonopah, the flight center, and when he did contact the flight center, they did validate that there was an unknown aircraft in the area at the same time of this incident, and then it was on the radar. So they did see on the radar an unknown object to them. Richard also called to Area 51, and they confirmed a Cardinal was in the area that flew by really fast. Cardinal is a call sign for a known ET aircraft. Cardinals were so advanced that, and Richard's kind of telling about Cardinals at this point, that Cardinals were so advanced that they could outfly any of our ships. And at one point, President Reagan issued a statement for military to down any Cardinals.
Yeah, he had like a blanket open operation. Anytime they saw one, they were given full authority to shoot it down.
Exactly.
One thing that I found interesting in this story that kind of stood out to me is when the kids were on the ship, on the craft, they kept asking for their mommy and daddy. The extraterrestrials were confused. They had no idea what they were talking about.
Right.
And they're like, our mommy and daddy, they're the ones that take care of us. They're the ones that was with us when you took us. And they're like, oh, you mean your controllers?
Your controllers, yeah.
Is what they called them. They also did, like, when they were doing the talk screening and stuff like that, when they were examining the children, not the aliens, the Air Force. When they were examining the children, they found something in their system that they couldn't identify.
In their blood test,
In their blood test, there was a substance that they could not identify. And they believe this was the tablet, the pill that they gave the children.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's in their blood.
I mean, as I was listening to this, my first thought was because they had all their kids' stuff packed up in their car, obviously, because they're all going on vacation. When they're trying to
tell the deputy
about it, they're like, no, look, we had kids with us. Here's their stuff. And my first train of thought is like, this is such a convenient way to murder your children and stash
that's exactly
them.
what I was thinking. I wonder if this is what the deputy was thinking.
Aliens took it, and that's kind of where I was thinking. Like before I realized that this guy was very informational.
Yes.
Very hard to listen to. For what got me was there was a lot of remember that it's going to be important later, and then he never spoke of it again. Which is why I made that comment earlier about the when I said the tire was flat, and I'm like, that's important.
Yeah.
He did that a lot. He's like, remember the tire was flat, that's important, and then he never touched on that again.
Right. I'll come back to that. He never came back to it.
He's like, we'll talk about that later, and he did that a lot.
Yes.
But he was very informational. But yeah, that's before I kind of realized that they were going to, obviously I knew that the aliens had taken the children before I realized that they had actually found them. That's my train of thought is that's such a convenient story to if your kids get kidnapped or you do something to your kids. Not saying that, I don't know the people obviously, but I'm like, that's just such a convenient story.
Right.
But then they found the kids, so everything was good.
But the crazy thing was that they were being hysterical about it, So if somebody really killed their kids, they're not going to try to have somebody help them find their kids and be hysterical.
Well, that's true. I don't know.
When they arrived to the base. Well, you weren't there.
You weren't there.
No, there was that Netflix documentary where the guy took his wife and kids and killed them and put them in the oil things.
That guy's insane.
That dude was acting like he was all in shock and stuff. I think he's the one that called 911. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyways,
I don't remember.
Different story. Doesn't matter. But it's just that was where I went with them.
Yeah.
That's convenient. I don't know why.
Imagine being this cop, right? And they have
in a small town. This is a very small town,
right? And at this time they also talked about Area 51. So the place they went to, the place that they went to seek help from was a gate to Area 51. And at the time, it was being manned by a private. It wasn't military personnel manning the gates. It was a private. It was the next one. Okay, sorry. Oh, duh.
Jeez. Either way, at the point.
But either way,
it wasn't called Area 51 back then. It was just the Tonopah Air Force Base or something.
Yeah, some kind of Air Force base. But the deputy that showed up there, thinking in his head, going, yeah, right, you probably murdered your kids, or you probably didn't even have kids.
That's probably what he was thinking the whole time.
So she's proving, okay, yes, I did have kids. And he's probably like, yeah, we'll never see these kids. If what you're saying is true, that they did get flown away in a spaceship, yeah, what can we do about it?
Exactly.
And in my thought, you probably either one, never had kids, or two, you killed your kids, so we'll never find
Left
these
them out in the
kids.
desert.
So I'm not the only one who went there or got it.
Well, when I was hearing the story, that's the first thing I did think of.
What's going through this officer's head?
Yeah.
I mean,
then-
it's like when he did say though, like, you know, if aliens did take your kids, what do you want us to do? Like, I mean, that's not very like a good way of going about it. It's not very tactful. But at the same time, like, I agree with him. It's like, okay, well, your kids were kidnapped by aliens. Like, seriously.
But then,
Like,
when the kids show up, and then like all the people find the kids,
And
then
people
they-
from Area 51 drive up.
yeah, and
go
then
investigate.
they investigate it and talk to these people. There's already a lookout for missing kids or kids that were abducted or whatever, and it all like adds up. Like it's craziness.
And the kids are telling their story. Yeah, we were on the spaceship. They strapped us down, and they were just asking us questions, telling us that they've known us for a long time. And then we see the desert. The next thing you know, we wake up and we're on the road. We're
she
done.
mentioned a flagpole too, and then they did find like where the kids were found. It was one.
Oh,
of
there
like
was
mile
a
marker. With
there was a survey
construction
marker,
flag.
a
Yeah.
survey marker.
And it was near where their car was parked. You know, I didn't hear much about the car afterwards. Like, did it have a tire blown? Did they just because they drove? They drove to
They
this.
probably had to do the spare.
Oh, okay, I got you.
It was important.
So,
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
so I'm gonna tell this other story is more about spaceships and cardinals that we just talked about, and then we can talk about more about this story again. But so Richard was saying that Area 51 developed advanced fighter jets. For example, the F-117. In October of 1985, around 9:30 p.m., the F-117 and an A-7 went out for a training mission. An A-7 aircraft was made to like take photographs and just check on the F-117 while it was up in the air. 15 minutes later into this flight mission, A-7 radioed down that there was another craft flying above them. The base confirmed that there was a UFO on radar. Now, remember, when I say UFO, we're talking about it's an unidentified flying object. Okay, they don't know it's a UFO. They don't know what it is. The F-117 said the UFO duplicated every pattern that it made, and it couldn't shake it. Also, the A-17 did try to like interrupt. Like the A-7 would try to fly in between them to kind of break it up a little bit, but the UFO just stayed like near proximity and followed every pattern that the F-117 made. Any communication with the UFO was unsuccessful. So both aircrafts and the base tried to communicate with the UFO. It never responded. The pilot of the F-117 mentioned that the UFO would fly straight and then all of a sudden quickly turn at 90 degrees. Richard Doty has mentioned that we have no aircrafts that can make sharp 90-degree turns. They did dispatch two F-16s out there to investigate it. And they actually fired Sidewinder missiles at the UFO, and one of them did hit the UFO. It did crash land. When security arrived, they noticed that it was saucer shaped, and there were then all of a sudden another identical UFO arrived and landed near the downed UFO. By the time the Air Force arrived, there was only one UFO remaining. So they did see it land, but they didn't see the other one take off. They did notice damage to the ground UFOs. I think they said on the undercarriage. They left the downed UFO there for 10 days in case of radiation. So they just left it alone for about 10 days. Then when they went to go out there, they blew open the hatch to enter the craft. They named it Cardinal 3. So if you do your math, that means they've had two other cardinals. They named this one Cardinal 3. It was 31 feet in diameter, and it was made from an unknown lightweight metal material that could absorb sound waves. The interior contained 3 seating positions with hand control panels. So just like a hand control panel. No buttons, no knobs, no wires, no controls, nothing else inside the aircraft, just hand control panels. The flight control system and propulsion system were unknown to them. And then that's when they declared the Cardinal 3 was extraterrestrial. So that kind of tells you about the craft. I can't even think of what 31 feet in diameter is like. It doesn't seem that big, does it?
31 feet in diameter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
Is it huge? Okay. So maybe the kids were something in a ship similar to this. Because this story that I just said about this air mission was in 1985. The family's incident happened in 1982, so 3 years prior to this story. But this kind of tells you a little bit about what Richard is saying is like, okay, we know of extraterrestrial spacecrafts, and in the story example, they took 2 kids for a little adventure and brought them back to do some checkups on these kids. What do you guys think of this story? This first story?
Fascinated.
Oh,
Yes. Not quite as scared?
I was scared for the children.
Okay. I'm glad you have that feeling towards them.
Well, I think this one doesn't seem like they gave these kids like a full examination.
Uh-huh.
But it seems like they weren't, it wasn't as traumatizing as Fire in the Sky.
Oh, okay.
It reminds me kind of more of like Betty and Barney Hill, where they just kind of...
We're talking with Betty.
Exactly.
Like just communicating with her.
And
like,
showing
hey.
her the map.
Yeah, like, hey, this is where we're from. You want to come check it out sometime?
Yeah, if you guys ever get some cool wheels that can make it up here.
If you're ever in the area...
Stop by, Once your simple-minded civilization gets to
If you're
figure
ever
out
in the
what we
mood
got.
for some more probing, feel free to...
Or more finger banging.
If you ever come down this highway again.
Yeah, I thought this story was incredible. I thought it was an incredible story and these 2 kids were very, like, they were scared, right? Because they're like, where's our mommy and daddy? But then they're like, okay, yeah, they seem nice enough. I mean,
So most of the
they didn't speak
mainstream...
well English, but, they were
Yeah.
nice enough.
So, and I think Betty said something similar where the extraterrestrial she was talking to, they didn't speak. I think there was like one that spoke well, and then the rest were just kind of didn't know really how to communicate. If I remember correctly.
like this one, they were saying that had a robotic sound, but
I want to
just
know
bad
more about
English.
the car. Did this car ever get more thoroughly investigated? Because they said, the car might have radiation and this, that, and the other, but you never got back to that.
Well, it felt spongy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did it stay spongy?
So I'm thinking, they're hearing this humming sound. I'm wondering if it's emitting something that's kind of maybe vibrating everything, including the car. So when she puts her hand on top, it's probably still metal, but the vibration made it feel
Magnets.
something else. But then by the time it was done, the car was just back.
Here's
to
another
normal.
thought. The metal absorbed sound waves.
On the aircraft. Yes.
What if that's what they use for propulsion?
That's exactly. I think that's why he mentioned it.
Yeah.
Magnets.
Yeah. So it's something like that.
Magnets and sound.
Yeah, sound magnets.
Sound magnets. Everyone knows that there's magnets in speakers. Why? For propulsion.
Yeah. There you go. Problem
And so you're asking about what's up with the car. I'm more interested in what happened to this downed aircraft. No, I know they've got
Reverse engineering.
Yeah, exactly. So reverse
That's what Bob
engineering.
Lazar was doing.
Yeah, so they're taking these spacecrafts in and saying, "Figure it out, dude.
Yeah, figured out. Genius.
We're gonna pay you big bucks. Figure
Fun.
it
High
out."
paid nerds.
Yeah.
And if you guys listening or watching don't know the Bob Lazar story, you guys need to check out what I mentioned earlier. Maybe we should do an
Because
episode on
even
it.
we might have to, because he even talks about some of the spacecrafts that he was reverse engineering came from fossil dig sites.
Yes.
So these were downed aircrafts from millions of years ago.
Yes, that's right. It's pretty interesting.
When cavemen were throwing spears at them and downing them the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Now these Sidewinder missiles.
Rocks.
Yeah. Losers.
This is the dinosaur. The T-Rex got them with their big bite and tiny arms.
Well, so you got another story from Richard here. Let's tell this story.
Okay.
And we'll keep talking about it here.
Yeah, let's make fun of.
So this is also north of Las Vegas. This family was from north of Las Vegas, and they decided to go on a little trip to a ghost town. And they decided they kind of went through some local ones, and they decided on this one called Silver Bowl. And so the father, his name's George, Virginia the mother. Then they had some kids, Denise, who was 7, Billy, who was 13. So they decided to go to this old mining town called Silver Bowl, and they kind of going on a tour of the place. They see the old signs for Area 51 that say lethal force can be used.
Yeah.
and
No trespassing.
No trespassing. And it says Ellis Air Force Base testing range. So they kind of knew their perimeter where to stay out of and all that. So they did the whole camping thing with the campfire and all that, and they decided to go to bed around like 10. And then George he was awakened by a sound of a motor running and thought, oh, we got more campers coming by. And then went back to sleep, woke up again to some talking. And he gets out of the tent and sees some military personnel standing outside of the tent. And they tell him, hey, you guys need to pack up and get the hell out of here now. And he's just like, well, what happened? You know, why do we got to go? And he said, well, there's been an escaped convict, and he's loose in this area.
Which is true.
Yeah, there's an escaped convict for sure. So they tell him, hey, you got to pack up and get out of here like ASAP. So while they were getting their stuff together, the radio comes on. The military personnel,
the little walkie-talkies.
The walkie-talkies go off, and they can hear some screaming, and they tell them to get to a gate. Let's see, which gate? Gate 4. They said they needed to respond to Gate 4 ASAP. And the family got in their car, and they could hear like a screaming sound. I think that they were hearing like screaming sounds or something. I don't know. Anyways, so as
the military took off, and then they were still finishing packing up their stuff. And while they were getting in the car, they heard some screaming nearby.
Oh, the screaming was coming from nearby after the military left.
After they left.
Okay, and they were about to get in the car. And as they were getting in the car, George got grabbed from behind and pulled back. And he just screams to his wife, get in and drive. And so he's getting like ripped back, and she just does the first thing, instinct. She hops over, slides over to the driver's seat, closes the door, and she starts driving. And the son, who's in the back, Billy, he's screaming hysterically because he's saying now, as he's looking behind them, there's a monster chasing them. Mm-hmm. So she's just hauling ass and she's just driving. Let's see, where am I at here? So she drove and called law enforcement, and she was told that her, when she called law enforcement, they had her kind of do some running around. They had her she went to one gate for help. Mm-hmm. And from there, they kind of was collecting the information from her and then told her to go wait somewhere else.
That's where you said that she went to a gate, but it was
Area 51.
Well, it wasn't their security. It was a private security.
Private security. And they told her to wait somewhere. And then
they know what to do. They're like, we're hired guns. We don't really know what to do here.
Right. So, and everything is really far because they're in the desert. They're in the middle of the desert. So from where they had to respond to where they were camping at was going to take them an hour. So there and back and everything else, they finally told her to come to the gate of Area 51 after all that. So when she arrives there, that's when they tell her the bad news that her husband had been killed. But
she already kind of assumed.
Yeah, she already knew the worst because seeing what they saw, I don't think she saw the monster chasing them though. But they said she wanted to see his body. And they wouldn't.
Yeah, when she went to the mortician, she was like, "I want to see the body."
They wouldn't allow her because his body was ripped to pieces.
No, it was the mortician said his body is in pieces.
Oh, it's in pieces.
Yeah, because he was held. The military wanted to hold on to the body for investigating.
Yeah, and she wanted an autopsy done, and they told her no, it's already been done. And they told her that the hospital on the Air Force Base did an autopsy, but Richard Doty had said they didn't have a hospital on that base.
He knows that there is no hospital.
But yeah, the normal common folk, they wouldn't know this. She ended up getting a settlement from the government after all this.
That's my stomach. See, that's what my stomach sounds like. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
People didn't hear
that. But George's body was discovered 6 miles inside the base's perimeter when they found his body. So whatever this thing was that grabbed him, dragged him or whatever, took him back into the base. And do you think that you ripped him up from there, or you already had ripped him up?
Probably dragged him in one piece, and then
Well, if they were recovered his whole body from the same area, he probably drug him there and then tore him apart.
And how fast do you think this thing was moving?
400 miles an hour.
He would have to be. He'd have to be.
I have no idea.
This thing had to have been huge, though, too.
well, Richard and his partner David, they're the ones that had to go and tell Virginia what happened, and said, "Hey, yeah, your husband was murdered by that escaped convict." At the time, Richard didn't know what happened. That's what he was told to tell her. Like we were saying, he's a
He's disinformationist.
yeah.
So if you don't know what that is, basically what his job was, the government would give him
To
a
lie
story.
to families.
Yep, pretty much.
Or tell them they didn't see what they saw.
The government would give him a story. This is what you go tell the people. This is what you tell the family what happened. So his job was to like convince people that they didn't actually see what they saw.
But some of the times he didn't even know what it was.
Like in this example, he didn't
Like
know
in
the
this
story.
example, no, it's just
Yeah.
his superior said, go tell them this.
Escaped convict killed him, and that was it. And then they had to hold on to the body for military investigating. Sounds fishy there, but.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I want to see the body." They're like, "Well, you can't." The mortician's like, "You can't. It's kind of in pieces." But I got this letter from the military that says they already did the autopsy, and he's good. The mortician also said that in the letter, it said that George's body was discovered 6 miles in the base. So, yeah, basically, Richard Doty did get the story that the escaped convict was an escaped convict,
It's escape alien.
but it was an escaped extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial.
He could have been a convict.
Well, if he was captured, he was a convict.
Yeah, exactly. And he escaped, so.
He was
Hey.
committing crimes, clearly.
Yes.
Murdering people.
Yeah.
Murder.
Murdered who?
Oh,
George.
First of all, George is a hero, in my opinion. I mean,
Well, yeah,
that's some manly shit right there.
Yeah, you
He's
fight
like, "Hey,
off.
take off. I'm going to take care of this. Like, get out of here. Get the kids out of here." So, big ups to George there. But go ahead and keep telling the story there.
Well, let's see.
So, yeah, it was settled. She did file a claim against the
So
government.
the youngest, the son, Billy, he grew up and still had a lot of questions about what happened to his dad and all that. He ended up joining the Air Force and ended up being a security guard there. And he asked his master sergeant about the story, and he told Billy...
I kind of feel like it was like one of those things like, "Hey, you ever heard of this? You ever heard about a story about some family out here and a guy got..." I kind of feel like that's what he did to his master sergeant. "You ever heard of any weird stories out here?"
But yeah, he told him about the story about his dad. And he's like, "Yeah, well, that was my father." He's
So
like, "No
basically,
way!"
so imagine, so Billy was 13 at this time, and now he's, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 probably by the time he's working as security guard in the Air Force there. So he's at minimum 18, so probably, 18, 19, 20 years old probably at this point, and he's had questions for 5, 6, 7 years, like what really happened that night, because I saw something chasing the car, and he just probably asked his master sergeant, "Hey, you ever hear of this crazy story?" His master sergeant says, "Oh yeah, let me tell you about it." And master sergeant tells him the whole story. And he's like, "Yeah, well, that was."
See, this is
that was
crazy
my
too. A
family."
lot of people knew about this story, and everything's supposed to be hush hush.
Yeah,
And some personnel on base know about this already.
yeah.
Well, I would assume that there would be a fair amount of people in the Air Force that knew about it, because the Air Force is the one that did Project Blue Book, which was their UFO research project group thing.
I wonder why they don't just start releasing all this now that a lot of whistleblowers are coming out and
I think in our lifetime it might happen. A lot of it will come out.
but like all the
Well,
they have captured ETs and that they interrogate and take apart and learn about. Like, why don't they just release this to us?
Well,
So
here's the thing. So the government did come out, what was it, last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah,
yeah,
a
1 or
couple
2
years
years
ago.
ago.
This shit's real. So how do we know, like, here's my train of thought. Because you got all these quote-unquote whistleblowers that are exposing the government secrets. How do we know the government didn't tell them to do it? And this is how they're slowly revealing to the people that this shit is real.
Are you saying that they purposely are wanting to leak it slowly? Is that
Yeah.
Okay. Because the truth of it,
They're not ripping the Band-Aid off. They're just
right?
they're
Because
just
it's too
giving
much
you
to handle.
little bits of information at a time to where like they can
We're desensitized to it,
right.
And then we're like, when they finally say
and
it,
everybody already
and they were like,
believes.
"Yeah, we know."
Finally.
That's my theory.
No, it's a-
because
it's a
here's the
good
thing is,
theory.
all this stuff is like a lot of the stuff that he was talking about in this presentation. There was a lot of classified stuff that he couldn't even talk about still to this
Yes,
day. So
yes.
my thing is like, if this stuff is so hush hush and classified, and the government is like trying to stop people from revealing this, then why is this?
Why is he talking about some and not others?
Why is he talking about this? Why is the other dude, the Bob Lazar? Why are they able to say stuff without any retaliation from the government?
Well, they tried to hide Bob Lazar's involvement. They tried to be like, no, he never
They try to
worked
hide
here.
his existence.
Yeah, they were like, he never worked here. We don't know who you're talking
He
about.
never went to this college.
He's
that
never
he
been
went
here.
to.
Yeah, and he's like, I have all the stuff that says I did.
Well, and
oh,
the same
shit,
with-
we forgot we gave you things.
Well, and Doty here was doing the same thing in his presentation, and I saw it on. So I was
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to research this guy. He had
Right.
his security clearance badges still from Area
Yes,
51.
and maps. He had maps still. He had pictures still from these stories.
So it's not just
he has
like
pictures from these stories.
He's not just making this stuff up. Like
Right.
he's got stuff to back this up.
Yeah.
When I was looking into this guy, trying to find out more information about him, I came across a bunch of
lot of
other
porn.
fascinating stories. Yeah,
Alien porn.
alien porn. I mean, this guy's been doing this stuff for 40, 50 years.
Because he left in 1985. He left Area 51.
But who's to say he didn't continue doing like research?
Yeah,
on
I'm
his
just saying,
own or whatever.
just
But
Area
he left
51.
the Area 51
in 85.
He seems credible in my
Yeah.
opinion. He actually in an episode of UFO Witness that I was watching yesterday, because I was trying to find other stuff that he was in, and he was only in this for a little bit. But he, if I remember correctly, it was him. He more or less confirmed the existence of the Men in Black. That they're an actual like.
Doty did.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I don't know if it was him or if it was somebody else, but I believe it was Doty.
But in that episode.
Confirmed the existence of it's in that episode. So it's UFO Witness season 1 episode 5 called The Mothership Returns. Really good episode, by the way. And I'm not huge into UFO stuff, so if I'm saying it's worth watching, it's most likely worth watching.
I'm watching it tonight.
so-
Screw Stranger Things.
So yeah, you got 4 hours to kill because that's how long the 2 episodes
Episode
are.
is?
Hour and a half. Episode 8, 2.5 hours. Episode 9.
Oh, very Stranger
Of
Things.
Stranger
Oh,
Things.
God.
Sorry. So this is only the UFO Witness. This episode's only an hour. They do talk about the Phoenix Lights and some other stuff. So that's kind of
Which is an awesome story as
yeah.
well.
So, but he more or less, I believe it was him, confirmed the existence of the Men in Black. That they are not like an official government organization, but they are a government organization more or less.
He did talk about some other organizations that had other special jobs within Area 51, like I can't remember what F-darts, so like
Yeah, flaming darts.
flaming darts. Yeah, that's what I kept thinking about when he was saying that.
It
Yes,
was
yes.
S-dart.
S-dart,
S-dart.
S-dart. Yeah.
Yeah. So as of 1985, when did you have something else?
Yeah, I was gonna say. You said the Men in Black were not like military or
They're
associated.
not U.S. government.
They're not government.
officially U.S. government.
So a lot of people that talk about the Men in Black say they're kind of off. So alien.
Oh, I just heard another podcast.
You listen to more?
I listen to other podcasts as well, more of a podcast, and it was a story where it was you guys should listen to this one too. It's a good one. It was a school teacher, and he was visited by somebody coming in to ask questions because he had seen some things in the sky, and he worked at a school. Somebody said that somebody came looking for him. He's like, "Who was it?" I don't know. It was the two guys. They seemed really weird because they looked exactly the same. Looked like they're twins, and they had no facial hair, like no eyebrows, no eyelashes, like no facial hair. They had the hats on, but the hair underneath the hat looked like a wig, looked fake. Like the hair was sewn into the hat, and then it was just put on top of their heads. And anyway, that was
Interesting.
That was last week's episode of this podcast I listened to.
all right, the Men in Black, they're real.
Oh yeah,
So in 1985, the government or the military at the time, they had 5 known races of extraterrestrials.
So again, this is Richard saying my last year there, we know of 5 extraterrestrial races.
But he said, how many is there today?
He doesn't know.
He doesn't
okay.
know. Yeah,
Because people would debate him. Say, oh, there's 20, there's 40 different races.
there's
It's like,
hundreds of races, and he's
Yeah.
like, as of 1985, the government officially recognized these 5. And so the first one being the Eben. This crashed in Roswell and was held in captivity until it died in 1952. The second one is the one that I have been saying that I believe in. So I was actually really excited when I heard him
were
mention
right.
this one. This one is, I believe they're called the Archeloids. This would be the Nordics. They usually look Swiss or Norwegian, but these are the Nordic aliens, the ones that I've been saying exist. So I got one right.
Yes.
Then we got the Quantaloids. These are the shapeshifters. I've never heard of these.
I mean, either.
I want to know more about these and what the government knows about shapeshifters. Those are the skinwalkers.
Yeah. Interesting.
Super spooky. Next, we have the Heptaloids. They're humanoids and they're part machine. So they're the androids.
Yeah.
They're like Data from Star Trek.
That's kind of interesting. I'm kind of interested in this. Why though this would be a thing? Why there would be like a part machine, part human, when these, I don't know, we've heard about them,
They ran out of body parts.
right?
I don't know.
Those that come down, they're just doing the.
Maybe they're like Terminator, kind of like the same concept where they're like living skin over an
It was the 80s. It was a crazy time.
It was a crazy time. No, but like, so this makes sense, right? So you build a robot and then, but you put like living flesh on it that doesn't like decay and stuff like that. So it can just like, you don't have to worry about it growing old or,
That's a good theory.
you know what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at?
I see, yeah.
Like they could just drop it off somewhere and it's like self-sufficient and it just does its thing. They don't have to worry about checking up on it.
And it just records.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just passes information on.
maybe. It's speculation. I don't know. We'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
And then the last one, we've got the Transloids.
Well, those other ones, those machine ones, they're reporting back that, guess what? They're eating Tide Pods now. Guess what they're doing now?
You thought planking was weird. Planking and owling. That one was funny. Now they're eating Tide Pods.
So they just report back. Sorry, go to the last one.
Now they're dancing in the streets with circle lights. It's weird. Transloids, they're the ones that killed George.
Yeah,
So I wonder, because you hear people talk about the lizard men, right?
Yes.
I wonder if that's the Transloids.
Yeah,
Because I mean, that would look like a monster, right? If you had a giant lizard thing running.
I wish
but
there was like pictures of what these things, or he described them,
drawings.
or at
more,
least
more, yeah.
more
I wish
in
we described it
detail.
in more detail. I would have thought, because when he said, the was it transloids?
Transloids.
I would have
That's what
thought
he
if he would have
wrote.
said transloids, those are the ones that killed George. That I think he would maybe mention they're reptilian. I would have guessed, but who knows?
I like how he says, I don't know why they were given the Lloyds at the end of these names. He's like, I didn't give them these names. They were given already, given already. But
Fun fact: DVO's middle name is Lloyd.
Another fun fact, he's also a Mongoloid.
And I'm also an alien.
I knew it. That's why he was wanting to talk
His
about
middle name
aliens.
is his full middle name is Mongoloid.
Hey, that's offensive to Mongoloids out there. Actually, if you're comparing them to me, it's a compliment. You're welcome.
What just happened?
You wouldn't understand, Squatch.
Clearly. We're not an advanced alien race.
Now, when I think of these transloids, the ones that attacked George, as he tells a story, I think of something like a movie, right? He's opening the door, everybody opens something, attacks him from behind, he gets slammed against the door, gets dragged back, he's like, go, take off, drive off with the kids, and then he probably didn't last long, but
Yeah, I get the whole movie thing too.
Uh-huh.
But what I picture attacking him is like from Signs. Those aliens from Signs.
yeah, the
With
movie,
the lanky ones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I.
and they have like claws.
Yeah, Imagine him, one of those grabbing him.
But yeah, probably shred him like so it chased after the car, couldn't keep up or didn't want to keep up. Went back to him, took care of business with George, and then dragged him back to the base where he was. But basically, so it sounds like it dragged him back and like, all right, well, this is what I can do. So it's like, make sure you feed me more than often.
Oh, and then when I was telling the story about this, when the army or military personnel, they didn't hear screaming on the radio,
No,
then, right?
they were just told.
They were just told to
Gate 4.
go to Gate 4 ASAP.
Yeah.
And then the screaming was coming from behind them after they left.
Yeah.
When George and the family
It
were
was
packing
probably
up.
the military people screaming.
Well,
Most likely.
I just wondered right now, as if this escaped, did it kill anyone else while it escaped, and then while it was out, while they were kind of trying to hunt it back down.
I think
Did it kill
if it
anyone
killed
else?
anyone
No.
else, it killed military personnel.
Yeah.
And they can cover
I know
that up.
Well, I know
That can get covered up quick. But when it's
that's the only thing I thought.
yeah,
that's
when it's
the only
the
one I thought
public,
of.
when the public gets in the way, now they have to
Make
do
shit
some.
up.
Yeah, now they have to do some.
Yeah, I mean,
damage control.
I only thought of it would only have killed military personnel that was in the base while it was escaping. But I'm just curious now, how many others did it kill? If it
I want to
did,
know how the hell it
13.
escaped. How the hell they captured it in the first place?
With the spear gun.
spear gun or
Spear guns.
or just
Spear.
speared?
Spear. You know how they have those spear guns out in the middle of the desert?
Yeah, right.
I was thinking
For
more-
desert eels
Yes, the desert eels.
that have no reproductive organs.
They can only bone in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes, Wendigo. I was thinking of something along the lines of that. that
Oh,
was
okay,
attacking
okay,
them,
yeah,
Which
yeah.
wouldn't be technically an ET. I was thinking of more like a cryptid. That's kind of what I imagined was attacking them, but I don't know for sure.
Now, makes you wonder: some cryptids could be ETs
Possibly.
Yeah.
that just crash landed and escaped
here?
from Area 51, and they're like, "Shit, how do I go now? Let's just hang out in Duchesne, I guess."
Yep. That's where
Hang
they
out
go. Skinwalker Ranch.
Duchesne, Utah, or Ely, Nevada.
Yeah, so what I've learned from these stories is don't travel into remote places in Nevada.
Don't go where signs says no trespassing or deadly force will be used.
Yeah.
That's a good indicator. Not to
Sounds
go
like if you don't want to get attacked by aliens, don't go to remote places anywhere. Actually, all the stories we've talked about, Travis Walton, Betty Barney Hill, these two stories, they're all in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, true.
Stay within city limits and you will not be...
Or go in the middle of the day, not late at night or early in the morning.
Travis Walton
with
was
no
in
one
the,
else.
Travis Walton was in the daytime, wasn't it?
In the movie, it was nighttime, so I don't remember.
They just got off work, so it wasn't like.
Oh,
late.
yeah. They were loggers.
But they were in a remote area.
It's all at night. Don't go to remote places at night.
Yeah, it was after work.
The freaks come out at night.
Yeah.
Well, should we call that an episode, folks?
Yeah, this was interesting stories.
Yeah, it was. These are pretty wild. It's pretty nuts that I don't know. Just this has been covered up for so long, and then it's just finally coming out.
I'm telling you. It's
Yeah,
all part of the
it's
plan.
a slow burn, huh?
Slow
It's a
burn.
Slow
They're
burn.
just
I
releasing
like where you're
information.
going with
All
that.
right, so
I like where you're going with
so
that.
Beaker, then you've kind of been.
That's how I would do it.
But so you've always been like, I don't know how to say it. Like, what was your
Skeptical.
You're skeptical of UFOs. We've done a few.
No, so UFOs
extraterrestrial
I believe in.
stories.
UFOs I believe in because simply
Okay,
unidentified flying
extraterrestrial. I'm
objects.
talking extraterrestrial.
So I
Skeptical of ET stuff.
the Nordics, like I said, I've believed in the Nordics. They seem the most reasonable or realistic to me because
We'll have to do an episode on that because I'm not even aware of it. Like I've heard you mention it. I know of it. I don't know what it is though.
okay, we can do that. But the Nordics, I mean, and the fact that he actually mentioned that the Nordics, the government acknowledged them, at least in 1985, that the Nordics exist.
I think they still acknowledge it.
Obviously, I would assume so as well. But the fact that the government is like, yep, the Nordics is a thing, or the Archeloids, or whatever they call them. But yeah, no, that just makes me want to believe more research, do more research, and like I said, the episode that I watched on the UFO Witness, it had me really intrigued. So I'm starting to open up more to aliens and extraterrestrials.
Okay, that was my question. All right. Okay. Interesting. We're gonna hook you in.
I actually had someone at work yesterday. They've brought in this guy that helps with the new hires. and helps with training and stuff like that.
He's an alien.
He's an alien. So he actually has a question that he asks the new hires.
Okay.
And so I want to get your guys' responses too, and I'll tell you what I told him.
All right.
So between ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, what would you most
Ghost,
like to...
cryptid, and aliens.
Yes,
Okay.
ghosts, cryptids, and aliens. Which of those three would you like to believe actually exist?
What I want to believe?
Yeah, like,
or what
so-
do I think?
What would you want to
What
believe
would I
exists?
want to believe exists?
My first response was, well, one of those are, something like, which one do you believe in? Basically believe in.
Okay.
I believe was the question, and my first response was, well, only one of those three are real, which I said ghost. But and then the follow up question is, what one would you least likely want to come in contact with? So which one do you want to believe exists? Okay, is the first question. And then the follow-up question is, which one would you least likely want to, or which one would you want to come into contact with the least?
Cryptids and cryptids.
I don't want to come in contact with cryptids. Yeah. That's what I don't want to come in contact with.
So I actually said the same thing you did.
High five.
High five. Yeah, cryptids and cryptids, because I'm like, I want to believe cryptids exist, but at the same time, I don't want to come in contact with the cryptid. I'm like, aliens, I was telling him, I'm like, I kind of believe in aliens, and I told him again about the Nordics. I'm like, so I kind of believe aliens already exist.
I'm cryptids and cryptids because I do think aliens and ghosts exist.
Yes. That's kind of where I'm at. And then cryptids, if they do exist, they're the ones I don't want to come in contact with.
They're the most dangerous.
Most of the stories, the reason why I said most of the stories when it comes to aliens,
You might just get finger banged at the most.
right?
That's the worst case scenario.
Right. It's just they're kind of observing and examining and experimenting and testing. They're not really
Things don't go in there.
yes. Don't go that way. But you don't hear all these stories about people like being killed by aliens, right? Being attacked by aliens. But when you come to cryptids,
Except for George.
except for George.
That story.
That's
Just-
one.
It's a one out of like millions of stories. But cryptids, like, let's be honest. Would you want to run into an actual Sasquatch?
No.
Would you want to run into like Chupacabra,
Never.
like Dogman, Wolfman,
Nope. Pass.
Wendigo, any of that stuff?
No.
Would you want to run into any of this? No, because they're like, most of them are savage animals,
Yes.
right?
Know what you do? They're cryptids. They want to stay secret, right?
Yeah.
You go, I'm Facebook Living this shit. Facebook Living this.
And then gone.
And then they're not even there anymore. That's how you fight a cryptid.
So there you have it. Our answers: cryptids and cryptids.
Yes.
Agreed.
All right, folks.
What would you guys say?
Yeah, what would you
What
say?
would you say? What would you want to believe in the most, and what would you want to avoid?
We'll post this question. I want to hear your guys' ansers.
I think it's a
See
good
it.
question.
I think it's a great question.
It is. All right, guys.
But only an alien would ask that. Just saying.
And only an alien would want to know these questions. All right, guys, go see Don't Play That.
Peace out, butterflies.
Aliens, man.
That's weird, wild stuff.
This is the EVP Podcast.